So guys, thanks for being enthusiastic in wanting to follow my 4 key personal things I want to achieve this year. And I guess you want me to tell you a little bit more about each one of them. So we're here in front of my 4-star gooseneck. This is the current gooseneck that I have, built in the US, that has the horses in it. We've been away in this last summer, also without the horses. So we, in the back here, take a look. We have a little kitchen, sleeping area, and we sort of set up coffee machine and this sort of thing. You can go through, and this is of course where the horses are normally, but actually I take out the dividers and then the bikes and everything can go in here, and my windsurf gear, and we were actually, the fridge is still in here, we were actually pretty comfortable in here camping with the kids, and we decided that we were going to take a trip to test then how an actual camper was. So we rented a camper and we went down the English coast from Dover all the way to Cornwall, stopping on the beautiful beaches down that area. But of course the camper, for me, it's sort of an expensive deal. If you want to buy a decent one, you're looking at 65,000-70,000 euro, and it's still not quite what you want as far as setup goes. Everything is a little bit plastic. It's to do with the weight, so everything has to be light, and it's difficult to find exactly the outfit that sort of suits your needs and what you want to do. My idea is I want to be able to go up through Denmark, Sweden, Norway, the fjords, together with the family. And I have, of course, the F-truck that tows this rig normally with the 3 horses. And so you've got kind of also a powerful vehicle. The F-truck does nearly 2,000 kilometers on one tank. It's fuel and gas, LPG, not diesel, not the big V8, it's the new EcoBoost. We don't need to go into the motors and things. But we have a decent vehicle, and the kids sit comfortable, and I think it's a little bit safer than the kids just sitting in the back of the camper. And the camper engines or the vehicles are not all that powerful. You can end up coming to a big hill and feel like the camper is struggling. So my idea is to have exactly the same as the gooseneck we have here, also with the awning on the side, but a full rebuild without horses. So it's only camper. And we have the possibility to put a dinette into this area, and for that to be a slide out. So we have area in the dinette. And later on I will show you my chicken scratches, my drawings, my first attempts. I'm also trying to decide whether I have everything built in the US or I have a trailer built, which is just the skeleton, the shell, and then think about having it built in Europe, so that we have, you know, the plug and the electricity and the generator and the heating system and all of those technical things made in Europe, so that if there is a problem later on, we don't have someone that can't service it because it's made in America, or we don't have those sort of spare parts or knowledge to have it functioning. So these are some of the things I have to decide. We are going to try to keep a little bit some of the ideas of the horse part, including the back window, where actually I have the idea to put the garage in this side, so that we have a garage underneath for storage of bikes and things, ponies. And above this garage, above this door here, will be my kids' beds. So if you can imagine, we pull up to an amazing lake somewhere in Norway, and the kids can actually open up the top, and from their beds wake up in the morning and look out over a beautiful view. But I'll show you guys the rest of the layout, see if you have any ideas. But I find myself looking at a lot of Pinterest and going into hours of study of RVs in the US, but of course we have restrictions different in Europe for width on the road and those sorts of things. But this is my idea. I hope you follow along. Looking forward to you guys having some input if you have experience with camping or you have a good setup. I have some people in Australia that have already sent me their pretty cool off-road caravans and things like that. So yeah, let's take a look at the drawings. Okay guys, welcome to my architectural paradise. Here we have stage by stage the drawings and the plans for the Gooseneck Camper. Let's take a look. So I started off here. This is my very technical drawing of the current gooseneck. So this is giving me the meters, how big it is, and then I just made a rough sort of printout of a gooseneck, and then sort of got a bit of an idea, and then I went to inside the gooseneck, and then just with the drawing sort of stepped it out and got a measuring tape and measured a little bit where everything would sort of fit in. And in the beginning I wanted, from the experience of having the camper, I wanted to make sure that we had, you know, the kitchen, and I wanted the dinette or the place to eat directly across from that, so that made it easier. We had earlier on, Kutch had the Stafex horse truck, a big one with a slide out, so I had experiences with that was always nice to sit, made a nice bit of room. And then the shower and toilet was together in the camper, and Kutch's parents have also had a couple of caravans with that setup, and I experienced one time with a camper we had in New Zealand that was separate, and that was much better, especially if someone is in the bathroom or something, you know, and someone else needs to go to the other bathroom. Just nice to have it separate. So that was the idea. And then in the camper we had a garage set up, which worked very well in our last trip last summer when we went from Dover all the way to Cornwall. And the windsurf gear inside and the barbecue and everything fit in really, really well. And we sort of came to some camping spots and we could just easily open the garage door and take out the kids' scooters and, you know, a ball or whatever it is, and you have it all there ready really easy. So I thought I liked that design, and I had the idea that garage could fit at the back of where you normally have, or where we have now, the ramp for the horses, so you can just fold it down, and then the top part would be bunk beds for the kids so that they could be above the garage, and then the top doors that fold out could be that room we talked about where they can sit out, inside outside type area. And then I went to this very technical drawing. So this is the front of the gooseneck where our bed is. I had the idea of the kitchen, the dinette, which would be slide out. This was in the beginning cupboard storage, like to put your jackets and things in the fridge, and then the toilet, and then the bathroom with shower, and then this was the garret or the bed, a small closet, and a step up into the bed. So the kids had the double bed, and then that would look like this. So there was a door actually in this part where you walk in. Here's the door that you can get into the garage from inside, a bed that would go all the way through. And these would be cupboards actually on the other side, so the kids from their beds could go into the cupboard and get their clothes and things like that. And then from this very technical drawing, as you can see, all very accurate and to scale, I went a little bit more detailed. So here you're coming into the gooseneck, and then we have the step up. And I've sort of since changed the ideas again, not knowing whether this should be the fridge and this the dinette, whether that's two benches and a table in the middle or a U-shaped one. But then I have to go to the local builder here to see how measurements are going to look. Kitchen, bathrooms, and here of course the beds, maybe cupboards at the end because this whole length is quite long. So there didn't need to be a full bed. I could also have some closets at the end. But then I had kind of the idea that I wanted to try to design everything in a sort of meter or meter and a half shorter than what we now have. Just for convenience, the gooseneck we now have is got some length about it, and when you're driving, of course, it cuts in on the corners. So I thought if I could make it everything fit in sort of meter and a half shorter, then it would just make getting into places more easy. You know, camping spots, sometimes they're a little bit tighter, sometimes they have a hedge around, or there's some places where you need to get in or make a sharp turn. Going to Scotland, or particularly in Cornwall, with the small lanes and hedges on both sides, sometimes it can be a little bit tight. So Han Verstraete in Zeeland here, close by, he did a bit of a layout. He's building horse trucks, does a very good design of the interior, everything really strong and functional, a bit modern design, like a lot of the horse trucks, the livings from the horse trucks here in Europe. So he came up with this plan. So this looks, of course, a little bit more better technical. Of course, we have our bed, we have the slide out, and then we have the kitchen. And then he thought about the beds being on the side, and then having, this is the wheel arch on the outside of the gooseneck, that the beds could be sort of stepping out. There would be a little ledge over that, and then the bathroom at the back. But then, of course, that leaves us kind of little room for a garage. There could be storage on the outside of the kitchen here. So this part being the double fold out, which is, we have that storage now in the gooseneck that we've got, which I can show you in a minute. But then, yeah, I still have in my mind the original idea, and now I feel here we're sort of losing the garage and losing a bit of space. So there's some decisions to go with. And so I think I've kind of come to this agreement. You can see it's 5.65 meters in length for the living part, including a 2.30 meter up in the peak. And I think if I go to Han and see if my measurements are correct, we could come in, here would be a little bit closet space, the fridge, the U-dinette, the kitchen space that backs onto the bathroom, toilet on this side, the double bed space with a closet, and then the garage underneath. I'm thinking that I'm going to keep the length of the gooseneck we have now and build our full camper size gooseneck just as this is. So the next steps will be to go to Han again and see what he thinks of the design, and then make contact with 4-Star in the US, which is the brand of gooseneck that I have now, and also chat to them and see what is the best thing to do. Do we make everything there in the States? Do we have the shell and we get them to build the slide out, or do we not get them to build the slide out? Is it better to have the mechanism that Han is using here in Europe, also for later on for maintenance and service, if we need parts, if something happens? And then, of course, do we get them to build it just putting in all the windows and the spaces according to our design? So lots of decisions to make, and I'm sure I'm only at the beginning of this, and as I go along there's going to be a lot more decisions and a lot of things we didn't think about, like how do we connect the toilet, for instance? What kind of mechanism do we have for that? Do we have the sort of trolley bucket system thingy majiggy as you do in caravans, or do we just plumb it straight into a grey water, black water tank underneath? Floor heating, generators for if we're off grid. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about, a lot of Pinterest things to look at, a lot of YouTube videos to watch, a lot of DIY campers, caravan builds to look at. Ideas will just keep flowing, I think.